Hey, sup, Drago again, and welcome back to the Next.js 14 series. In the previous video, we learned how to integrate React Hook Form and Zod for user validation in our Next.js app. But now it's time to get into the backend. Today, we're setting up a Postgres database with Supabase and integrating it with Drizzle ORM. Let's jump in and start by explaining what Supabase and Drizzle ORM are. So first up, Supabase is a backend as a service or BaaS platform that gives you the power of Postgre with a built-in REST API, authentication, and storage. Essentially, it's an open source Firebase alternative, but with SQL goodness of Postgre. Now let's talk about Drizzle ORM. Drizzle is a lightweight TypeScript-first ORM designed for full-stack applications. Unlike traditional ORMs, Drizzle focuses on writing type-safe SQL queries with a minimalist approach. We are not going to cover how to create a Postgre database from scratch, but no worries. You can easily create a database by heading to supabase.com, signing up, and starting a new project. Once you're done setting it up, Supabase will provide you a database URL. Now let's jump into the setup and the integration part. Heading over to the existing project, let's first create a .env.local file and paste our URL as database URL. Now we need to install a lot of packages before we move forward. So I'll be giving the commands in the description below. I've already installed all the packages, so I won't be doing it again. First, let's set up our environment file by making it type safe. So I'm gonna make an env.mjs file and gonna import the create env from t3oss/env-nextjs. After that, we'll also be importing Zod. Inside it, we're gonna export a variable env. We're going to call the function createEnv, which takes an object as a parameter. First, we're going to have server. We'll only write the variables that we want to call from the server side. Inside it, we're going to define the database URL using the same character set and casing as the env file. After that, we're going to define our expected schema. So obviously, it's a string, but also a URL that will have Postgre in the name. Next up, we must define how we want to access our envs. So inside runtime env, we're going to write process.env. Lastly, we need to import it in our next.config.mjs file. And that's it. We'll see it in action when we'll be connecting it to the database using the URL. Now, inside the .eslint.rc.json file, we're going to add Drizzle as a plugin, extend Drizzle recommended settings, and also define the two rules, enforce delete with where and enforce update with where. Now, inside the lib/utils.ts, we're going to redefine our generate ID function. So here we'll be using the parallel drive/quit2 package, and we'll just be making our own custom function so that we can use it wherever and whenever we want. Inside the lib folder, we're gonna make a new folder as Drizzle. We're gonna make an index.ts. Inside it, we'll import env from env.mjs file, Drizzle, and Drizzle ORM/postgre.js. We're just gonna write constant connection equals to Postgre. Inside it, the first parameter is the database URL. So we're gonna write env dot. Now, as you can see, we get IntelliSense on the database URL. Now, on the next param, we're going to write prepare as false. Now, the actual documentation why we're actually making it false is written in the Drizzle docs. So I'll be sharing it in the description below. Next, we're going to export the instance of DB that we will use later in the API routes. So export constant DB equals to Drizzle that is imported from the Drizzle ORM/postgre.js, and inside it, the connection. Now we need to make a table to store the data. Right. Let's make a new file schema.ts inside the Drizzle folder. First of all, we're going to write export constant users equals to pg table. Now, on the first parameter, we actually define the table name. So first, the column will be id. Now, inside it, we're going to write text and then inside the param id. Now, this id becomes our table column name. Now, this id is obviously going to be our primary key. It's never going to be null. And then we have to automatically generate the id. So we're going to call default fn. Inside it, we're just going to write generate id. Next, we have the username column. Here we're going to write text as username, which is not going to be null, and obviously username is going to be unique. Next up, the password with text as password, and obviously it's also not going to be null. Lastly, the created at. This time, the column type will be a timestamp with created_at. It's not going to be null, and also we're going to set a default value of now. Now, we also need to connect the schema with our database so that we can get type safety on the API routes. All you need to do is just import star as schema from the ./schema. And lastly, where we exported the DB, we can just give a comma after the connection, and inside the object, we're gonna just pass the schema. Now, based on the table, we also need to change our own validation/user.ts file. So previously we had id as a number, which will change to string with fixed length of 16. Also, we'll add a created at field, and for the create user schema, we're gonna omit both id and created at. Now let's head over to the route.ts inside the API/users folder. So first of all, we're gonna write export async function get. Inside it, we're going to have the try catch block. Inside it, we're going to write constant all users equals to await db. Now after it, we're going to access the query and then users. The users is the same table that we imported from the schema. Now dot users and then dot find many. This will give us the collection of all the users inside the table. Lastly, we're going to return a response with data as safe users array schema dot parse with all users. Now for the catch block, first of all, we're going to check for Zod error. Next up, we're going to check for drizzle error. Next up, error instance of error, and lastly, internal server error. That's for the get request. Next up, we have the export async function post. This time, we'll be needing the param with rec as next request. Inside it, obviously we're going to have a try catch, so I'm just going to copy the same catch block over here. Now inside the try, we're going to write constant body equals to await rec.json just like the previous one. Then we're going to have constant user equals to create user schema.parse as body. So constant existing user equals to await db.query.users.find first. Inside it, we're going to write where. Inside this where, we're going to write eq, that means equals. Inside it, we're going to import the users table. So we're going to import the users table from the schema. So users.username, comma user.username. Now if there is existing user, we're going to throw an error with conflict or username already exists. Now that the checking is done, we can create a new user. Now this time we're just going to write constant user equals to await db.insert. So inside the insert, we're going to call the actual schema. So if the users, then dot values. Inside it, we're just going to pass the user. Now this is actually weird that this query does not return us the newly created user. For that, we need to write dot returning. Dot returning returns us the user as an array. So we're going to wrap it inside the first bracket and we're just going to write op0. So this will return us the first user inside that array, which is our newly created user. Lastly, you're going to send the response with safe user schema.parse as new user. And that's it for the whole backend. Once we're done here, we need to push this table to the database. So inside the package.json, we're going to add 3 new scripts. The first one is db-gen. So we're going to write drizzle-git generate. Next one, db migrate with drizzle-git migrate, and lastly db push with drizzle-git push. Now about the scripts, I'll be linking the documentation below. And now we're going to make a drizzle.config.ts at the root of our project. So inside it, we're going to write export default define config. This define config is imported from drizzle-kit. Inside it, we're going to write schema as the schema path. Next up, the dialect. Now the dialect is going to be PostgreSQL. Next up, the migrations with the prefix as Supabase. And lastly, the out as ./drizzle. So it will automatically create a drizzle folder where it will save all the SQL queries. So in the terminal, we'll use the bun run db-gen. This will create the drizzle folder in the root of our project. Now either by using Supabase inbuilt SQL editor or a third-party software like Table Plus, we're going to be pushing these queries into the servers. So if you're using Table Plus like me, connect to the database and in the SQL editor, paste the query. Hit Ctrl-Shift-Enter and the table will be created. We're going to just hit Ctrl-R and look, the table is here. So let's actually see it in action. On the /users page, we don't have any users. We're going to have test1 as the username and any valid password. Let's hit create and look, we have our data over here. Let's try creating another user with the same username. Look, we have an error with duplicated username. So let's change it to test2 and try it out again. See, now we have 2 users. We can refresh the page or restart the server as many times as we want, but the data won't reset as we're fetching it directly from the database. And that's a wrap for the video. We learned about how you can easily set up your Postgre database with Supabase and Drizzle ORM in your Next.js project. In the next video, we're going to expand on this by creating some database tables and interacting with them using Drizzle ORM. We'll look at how to build models and perform CRUD operations. So definitely stay tuned for that. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. Finish up, I want to let you in on something exciting. If you're enjoying the content and want to support me, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/itstrvgo. As a subscriber, you'll get early access to all my videos a day or 2 before they go public on YouTube. Plus, you'll be able to see exclusive behind the scenes, get sneak peeks of upcoming projects, and much more. It's a great way to stay ahead of the curve and get involved in shaping future content. Also, if you have any questions or need help with anything we covered, don't hesitate to join our Discord server. I'm active there and it's the best place to connect with me and the community. You'll find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next